Here we got like big group here. Okay, I think we are live. Waiting to see it pop up on YouTube here, just to verify for sure. Welcome everyone. If you guys are seeing this, let's see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we are live. Cool. How's everyone doing? Great to see you. The chat is full. We got a big crew here. This is going to be fun. Yes, it should. For all the questions about if it'll be recorded, Schrodinger's recording. It is simultaneously recorded and not recorded until the end, and then we find out which one it is. But so far, all the live streams through YouTube have gone well. So I am optimistic that this one will be successfully recorded as well. Thanks everyone for being here. We're going to be talking about how to craft and close a $10,000 offer. I've brought 3 guests here who I'm super excited to introduce you to, who I've worked with a lot of writers over the years, and I've worked with a lot of successful writers, but these 3 in particular, they close 10K plus packages like it's nothing. Like, Ryan is behind the scenes pitching these book deals. I'm trying to get him more into more public personal branding, but for now he's just, out there in the DMs sending these 75K pitch packages like it's nothing. Michal has been building a very prolific LinkedIn brand for years, and she regularly attracts and closes 15K plus website rewrites and kind of like new branding voices, a new brand voice. Brands who want to go from just, hey, I got a website, to I'm really standing out with my website. I'm really making a statement, really putting out a defined value. And then I think a lot of you guys already know Sarah. I've collaborated with Sarah a good bit in the past. Sarah has the Write Your Way to Freedom brand and course and training and coaching. She was some of the deals that she's done with doctors and health in the healthcare space have been super impressive. And she translated her learning from that into helping other writers do similar. And, you're someone who was closing the 20K per month gigs and now has students closing the 20K per month gigs. So that's pretty cool. So thanks all of you guys for joining. Super excited for, to chat with you guys about these offers. I'm going to give each person a chance to talk about, possibly the first 10K offer that you ever did, and, or the first type of offer and what went into crafting that. And then what you've learned over the years about why people are so willing to pay $10,000 and more for a marketing service to an individual person. For some people, it's hard to wrap their mind around that. And so getting a different angle from each of us, I think, will be super helpful. And then if we have time at the end, we will open it up for questions. So sound good, everyone? Cool. Yeah. Awesome. So with that said, let's go ahead and start with Ryan. Ryan, can you tell us about maybe if you remember the first time that you closed a 10K deal, if you remember the details about that, and if not, then maybe the first category of like offers that was starting to show up above the 10K range.
Oh yeah, no, I remember it because I was scared out of my mind to say the number. I remember it was maybe a little over a year after I got into marketing and copywriting full time. I remember I knew what I wanted to make. I was very money motivated. I came into like, all right, I want to use this career to make money. And so I kind of worked backwards. I was like, okay, I want to have something that I can offer for $10,000. I didn't want to think of the service first. I wanted to think of, okay, I want to make $10,000. What do I need to build, do? What kind of service does it need to be where there's more than $10,000 worth of value that I can pitch to these people, upsell to these people, whatever. And so what I decided to do is I'd worked with e-commerce people, I'd worked with some agencies, I'd done kind of a little bit here and there all over the place. Because I changed my like copywriting niche. I changed it 8 times in my first year. So worked with a lot of people. And so I remember that $10,000, the first time I did a $10,000 offer, I said, okay, I'm going to do all their copy. So virtually unlimited copy for them. And I was kind of scared because I was like, they're going to take advantage of that. But I've literally never had anyone take advantage of that. Be like, oh, virtually unlimited copy. I want 300 sales pages by next week. Thank you. No one's ever done that. So, and that also kind of goes back to like choosing good clients, like qualifying your clients really, really well. So I said, okay, virtually unlimited copy. At this point, I knew a lot of strategies. I knew the different patterns that businesses in whatever niche I was in could take to be successful. So I was like, okay, I can bring some consulting. I can bring some strategy. What else can I throw into this mix? And I was like, I'm good with people. I'm really good at talking to people, getting people to do really good jobs. So I was like, okay, I will also manage the other contractors. I was like, if we have an ads person, I will manage them. If we have an SEO, consultant, I will manage them. If we have a designer, I will work very closely with them. So I can go to my client and be like, I will take this off of your plate almost completely. You can talk to me and I'll handle everything for you. So I was like, okay, that's probably worth more than $10,000 to a lot of these CEOs, these business owners. And so that was the first time that I pitched it. And I pitched it. I was scared. I was sure I was like sweating probably. I probably did not look super confident, but I said the number and they accepted it.
Love it.
Nice.
And you brought up a couple interesting points there that I think are worth commenting on, which is one, like anytime where you're coming up with a offer that you can consistently sell, there is the question of what can you sell and what can you fulfill. And when we look at those two things, we find that certain pieces of our offer often have a higher perceived value than the actual difficulty they take to fulfill. So for example, you mentioned unlimited copy. For a lot of people that might sound scary, but when we look in practice, the way people interact with like unlimited copy or even like unlimited revisions, that's one that I've offered in my career, is like unlimited revisions. I do put a caveat of like, provided there's not a shift in the desired direction of the copy of the originally requested direction. But like when you say unlimited revisions to the client, that feels like a value. That feels like, okay, I'm going to be able to keep working with you until we get this to what I want. And in their mind, who knows what that is, but it's a high perceived value, where in reality, I rarely have people request more than like 1 or 2 rounds of edit. So the actual work to deliver that is infinitely lower. I remember, Sarah, you mentioning there was a point in one of the funnels that you were working on where you offered a free call in addition to something that you were selling. And you found that like it really boosted the conversion rate, but the number of people who took you up on that and actually scheduled the call was pretty low. And so it was this, it was this big perceived value and I found a similar thing with like communities. When you join a new community and you see this big archive of content, it gives you this impression of like, wow, this is a huge resource for me to tap into. In reality, community members rarely go through all that. They rarely go through all the past call recordings and training. But it's thinking about perceived value. And so when you can do something that's like, hey, I only need to make this once and I add it to the archive, and now every time a new member comes into this community, they're going to have a high perceived value. Michal, I forgot to mention Copytribe, because you have an excellent course and that you train writers with as well. And your archived content, you actually do live cohorts, but I think you've been adding some archived content as well. Yeah. Have you experienced the same thing? I saw you nodding with that. People coming in the community and see that the recordings.
Yeah, it's interesting. So a lot of my students in Copytribe are pretty new to the copywriting world. So ironically, it might be the opposite. In other words, they don't necessarily
they take advantage of all that.
The value, like until they start watching, and then they're like, oh my goodness, this stuff is gold. But what I found is that the bonus vault is not necessarily what gets them over the edge when deciding to join.
Okay. So it's actually kind of the inverse. It's like it's less of the perceived value for that specific audience segment, but when they come in, it's a big real value addition.
Exactly.
Love that. So cool. You just wanted to tap into that kind of those things, because when you're thinking about a 10K plus offer, when we're thinking about leverage, we have to be very conscious of perceived value. We have to be very conscious of what's the thing that people specifically are wanting? Because when you're selling the bigger packages, you can't sell people what you think is important. You have to sell them what they want, what they value, what they're looking for. So moving past that, Ryan, or actually let's go ahead and do if Michal and Sarah, if you guys remember your first 10K plus offer, let's go for you first, Michal. Do you remember what yours was?
So I was a lot less money-minded than Ryan. I was kind of just like on this ride and not knowing where it would take me. So I kept upping my price for the same web package. And it was like, oh, well, if they're willing to pay $7,000, they'll probably be willing to pay $8,000. And then just kept going up from there. What was a light bulb moment for me was that once I was creating 6-7 pages of web copy for a brand, I realized that I inevitably was doing a lot of messaging strategy and foundational brand messaging as a pre-step before that web copy. And I realized that I could package that into a really readable, impressive presentation packet, which could then be its own deliverable. And I could present as a foundational messaging guide that would not only inform the web copy, but would inform all their marketing efforts going forward and align the whole team internally and make sure that their brand voice was always consistent and that everything was centered on these verbal foundations. So that was a light bulb moment, because while the trigger problem for most of my clients was, I need a website rewrite, I need to redo my website, that was why they approached me. Once I threw in this beautifully designed brand messaging guide, or even if it wasn't designed, and for different clients, I offered different things. Either way, that was like, oh, wow, this is a foundational piece. This is a foundational asset that's going to give me a lot of value down the line as well. And I think that helped a lot of clients get past the 10K price. So it was like the combination of the web copy and this foundational guidance.
Okay. Love that. And when you first added that in, did you immediately increase, did you attempt to sell that as its own deliverable, or did you package it into the other thing?
So because 90% of my prospects would approach me saying, hey, I need a new website, I never thought to offer it as a standalone deliverable. But 2-3 years in, I had people start approaching me and saying, hey, I want just that. We don't need a website right now, but I want just that. So there definitely is a market for that. But I still find that the external client-facing assets are the big burning problems that more people want to solve.
Absolutely. I found a lot that, when you're building out a package, you really have to build it around something that people are conscious they need. And you may have a component in there that the moment you say, have an eye light up moment of like, oh yeah, I want that. But it's not necessarily going to be that brings most of the clients to you in the first place.
Absolutely.
Love that. And Sarah, how about you?
Actually, it was funny when you said, if you could remember the first one, I cringed a little because I was like, oh, I don't remember. Because I think it's been 7 years. But I think it was 7 years. And I think the reason also that I don't remember it is because once I crossed that threshold, I was like, oh. And you just did it over and over and over again. And that's the thing that I think is a really good takeaway for people. People often say, and it's so true, that first $1,000 is the most difficult to earn. And then as you get better, as you grow, it gets easier because you know so much more and you know how to speak to people and communicate. And so it was I know around the time period, but I was pretty quickly oh, I'm going to either up level all my clients to this or they're going to go. So, but I mean, it's really, I think I'm going to end up reiterating a lot of what Jacob and Ryan said is all of my, not all of them, most of my clients were doctors. I did have some e-commerce brands because honestly, they're a little bit easier to work with. Actually, they just kind of have systems in place a little bit better. So it was a nice breather for me. But I loved working with doctors. So they're all service providers. They're all super, super busy, running a practice. And then the ones I worked with were also doing keynote speeches and writing books. And they were just so, so busy. So for me, the thing was, how can I help these really busy people? And that was just making it as easy for them as possible. So whether it was placing them with a fractional CMO, which was super helpful for me because then I knew that they would take my copy and actually implement it in like a great way. And that was great because I ended up building good relationships. And so I had like my go-to web designer, my go-to fractional CMO, my go-to like adjacent service providers that I could turn to. And so obviously it just became also this nice ecosystem of referrals, which was great because I didn't have to do as much client acquisition. So that for me was everything. Was how can I give them a comprehensive, package that is exactly what they need, but also where can I figure out with just a little bit of digging? Because I'm also like very good with boundaries. Like I didn't do anything other than write copy. I was not going to do any back end work ever. So I wouldn't even join people's Slack channels or their meetings. So it wasn't like I was going above and beyond to a point of, I don't know, just bending over backwards. It was more so like, where can I figure out where they really need help so that this all can get implemented and make their lives a lot easier. So that it makes my job easier too at the end of the day, right? When I have a fractional CMO in place, like making sure things are like happening. So that was the big shift for me, was just adding strategy and helping them fill in the gaps where they needed it so that everything runs smoothly.
Love it. And when you started kind of offering things where there was a price point higher than 10K, do you remember any of the specifics of of what that like package would look like?
Yeah, it was typically like you would need for like what a business, especially a location-based brick and mortar practice business would need.
Okay.
So website copy, emails, funnels if they didn't have it, getting that all like squared away, opt-ins, blogs, and just making sure all of that was in place. And then that was the other thing is I started like, hiring a junior copywriter to do like the heavy lifting on blogs, things like that. And just kind of like restructuring until it was in a place where I really enjoyed the work that I was doing. And we were kind of like the one-stop copy shop for like every client so that they they just like didn't have the time to figure it out on their own, like at all. It just wouldn't get done. The other thing I'll add is like for very few clients, like ones that were absolute pleasures to work with, I realized that allowing them to send me like Voxer messages rather than emails was a game changer.
Okay.
And again, that's because they're like literally running from patient to patient. And so sitting down and typing out an email is such a huge barrier for them, but they could like rattle off a quick voice memo while they were like waiting for a coffee. So that was something that also was like a big game changer. And they were so like thankful for.
And I'm guessing they didn't know what Voxer was. You probably suggested that to them as like an easier communication tool.
Yeah, I only offered it for clients who it was really difficult to get a response from.
Okay.
And they would always be like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm just so busy. I'm so busy. And I was like, would this help? And then they would be like, oh my God, yes.
Something to think about there. I know a very common thing to see in the freelance space is people complaining about client behavior, right? So like,
yeah, that's why I like made that big caveat. Like I have firm boundaries.
And yeah, which is incredibly important. But I love that thought process of just like, there's a shortcoming on what you need from the client. And instead of it being like, oh, I'm just going to complain about it, you thought about what's something that I can figure out for the client to make it easier for them to give me what I need to do a good job.
I'll just like add to that something that I implemented probably around that same time. I don't know where it came from, but it was like an active decision where I told myself I was going to always assume the best in my client. And not that they were trying to, because I mean, early on, you end up in situations that are usually your own fault, or at least they were for me, because you didn't have strong boundaries. You got a little taken advantage of. You got burned. It sucks. And it's really easy to get like salty and paranoid. And I made like an active choice to just like assume the best in them. Because I actually had a situation where like one guy kind of ghosted me and it turned out he was going through a divorce and found out his wife was cheating on him, but he didn't tell me that till like 3 months later. And I was like, okay, I'm going to just operate with the assumption that they're doing their best. I don't know what's going on in their personal life. And honestly, that was a big game changer for me too.
I love that. It also connects with my first 10K plus contract, which was a 14K gig that was a huge, it was writing copy for this big like reviews site that they were trying to put, it was like this massive project. I think it was like 300 pages. Like a lot of it was, very minimal amounts of copy needed, but kind of a very messy process. But at one point, he sent me this like additional folder with all these like other pages that hadn't been in the original thing. And like, I was kind of like, okay, like, well, if we're going to do this, we need to add to the contract. And he came back with like, oh, like if you, like, I need you to do this, like, this is part of it. And I was like, well, it's not in what we agreed on, and then he started to like, okay, like I'm going to sue you. Like you got to pay me back the 7K I've already paid, or I'm going to sue you. Like he kind of went attack mode. And I'm like, I mean, I have good boundaries too. And I tend to mirror back to people what they give to me. So I started like writing up like a very aggressive email back to him. And like, I was like close to sending it. And then I kind of just stopped and I was like, all right, this dude's been through 3 project managers since I started working with him. He's probably panicking right now. Like he's probably just like, he's invested a bigger budget than he had planned. Like his max budget that he had planned was 10K. I was like, well, the lowest I can go is 14K. He agreed to it. So he's probably right now, he's like, I cannot afford to go do this process again with a new copywriter. I need this copy written. And so I just kind of thought, okay, I'm going to assume that like, this guy's just panicking. And if I extend an olive branch, we can figure this out. So that's what I did. He immediately responded very graciously. We were able to work it out pretty well, and it didn't end up being an issue for either party. And like, that's kind of, I think when you can pair, again, you have to pair it with good boundaries, because there are a lot of, the only thing that I have seen consistently paired with entrepreneurship is narcissism. So like, you're going to find narcissists out there who will happily exploit you and never feel bad about it. So you have to have the boundaries, but when you have the boundaries, you also find that there's a lot of just amazing people genuinely just doing their best. And when stuff comes up, if you can kind of, assume the best, I think that's what you said, Sarah, assume the best. It makes for a better.
I would add to that, Jacob, that if you're going to be selling a premium service, 10K, 15K, 20K, so throw in that VIP white glove service. Like if they want the voice notes, if they want another meeting, like just charge enough that you can bake these extras in within reason, and that you don't start nickel and diming on every little thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge. Huge point. Customer service, I think we've all seen it in our daily life. It's becoming a lost art. I mean, I think it's a consequence of the economic system we live in that increasingly is pressuring people way beyond what they should be experiencing. And as people feel more and more pressured, they interact with people more and more aggressively. And so like, if you want to be in that space where you're charging a premium service, you also absolutely have to pair that with premium customer service. And you got to be able to separate yourself from some of the mentalities that have become very popular in the freelance space. That's almost like we as the freelancers are fighting against like our clients. Like it's us versus our clients. I see this so often. And you cannot have that mentality if you're looking to, you're never going to grow a business burning every bridge you come across. So keep that in mind. Even when someone does something negative to you, like if you go burn the bridges mode, you're cutting off opportunities and potential referrals, and you're preventing the chance for relationships to be restored. Like if you can always just take hey, I'm going to take the high road in your professional life, it's generally it's going to have a better outcome for you. Love this. Already got some great stuff kind of for this next round. Moving from what was the first thing to sort of, is there a particular sort of 10K offer that became at any point, or a 10K plus that kind of became your bread and butter. I think for some of us, it's going to be consistent with that first project. If it is, if it's a new one that we hadn't talked about already, we can dig into the details. If not, if it's the same, then I'd love to hear kind of what have you learned over the years that are like the top, when you first sold that 10K offer versus now that you're selling it, however many years later, what are the talking points that you've learned to include, or what have been kind of the things you've learned that these are the things I need to hit in order for someone to go, yeah, I have no problem dropping 10K on this, because I think we've all reached that point where when we go into a sales call, we expect people to say, yeah, like it's more likely they're going to close than not. And there's probably a certain thing that we dialed in on along the way that got us to that point of realizing I have this, this, and this, which is all people are looking for. So why wouldn't they work for me? So starting with you, Ryan, I know I think yours is going to be different if we're going to talk about, I'd love to hear kind of on the book side, because that's been your main focus, in recent years.
Yeah. I had this copywriting client that I had, and he's kind of like a thought leader. And he came to me and he said, hey man, you write all this other stuff for me. I've been wanting to write a book. Can you help me with that? And I've always had this philosophy of I'll never say no to a good opportunity. It'll grow me, all that good stuff. So I said, yeah, sure. So we did it. I dove into it. I had no idea what I was doing. I spent dozens upon dozens of hours on YouTube and reading books. Like, how do I do this? And got through it, ended up producing a pretty decent book with him. And I was like, I really enjoyed that process. I'm going to pivot from just, web copy, sales copy. I did a lot of direct response copy is what I kind of specialized in. So I'm going to pivot from that, and I'm going to really focus in on doing the book stuff because I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the flow of working with 6, 8, 10 clients a year max, and really building those deep relationships with those clients. And so I pivoted to that. And that's what I do now. I charge anywhere from $50,000 to $75,000 per book. And it was interesting, the conversation we were just having about giving that like VIP service is that, I even tell my clients, I charge you enough that I can serve you as fully as I can. I can give you all that I have to give because I charge enough for that to be okay. I have a client, we finished working on his book last year, and I'm still in contact with them. So like, hey, did you need a connection to this person? Like, oh, are you trying to get into like bookstores? Let me do this for you. And he asked me, he's like, I stopped paying you. Why are you still kind of acting like an advisor to me? And I was like, well, I charged you a lot of money, and we built a cool relationship. And I told him, I was like, since we started working together last year, you've made 4 referrals for me. I was like, that's $200,000 in referrals. They didn't all close, but like, I'm going to keep fostering this relationship. I was like, from a very, pragmatic standpoint. Also, like, you're a cool dude to be around. And so, so I totally agree with offering that high level of value. And also, it's kind of the same mentality I had with the 10K offer. What can I throw into this that makes it so valuable that if anybody talks to anybody else who offers the same thing I do, I stand out amongst all of them because I give so much more. So for me, a lot of ghostwriters, which is what people that write books and stuff for other people with no credit, that's what they're called, they'll write the manuscript with the person, and then they're like, all right, man, I'm done. It's your book now. And that leaves a lot of people with a big bill and a Word document on their computer, not a book. So I thought, okay, I'm going to write the manuscript with you, and then we're going to plan your publishing path, and I will help you through the entire publishing process. If you want to go through a publisher, cool. I will query the agents for you. We'll put a book proposal together. If you want to do self-publishing, I have a network of people that I can connect you with, and that I can make that happen for you. If you want to go the hybrid route, I'm connected to a lot of really awesome hybrid publishers that can give you kind of the best of both worlds, get you in airports, bookstores, whatever you want. And so I offer that to them. And I just say, hey, if you work with me, you're going to get a book that you can hold in your hand and that you can go somewhere and see it on a shelf. And that's very appealing. So.
And guys, this is outcome over deliverable, and this is when you really want to charge a premium fee, offer a premium service, offer these big packages. You want to be thinking about outcomes. Again, it's not to say you can't build a successful business around purely deliverables, but in the AI era, especially, outcomes are more important than ever. And the value of deliverables has been lessened a bit. The value of outcomes remains as big as they always have been. And thinking about those extra steps, when some of the things Ryan's talking about, I'm sure there are pieces that are a little time consuming, but helping someone walk through a process that you already know like the back of your hand is not a huge ask for you, but it's a huge value for them. And so when you package those extra steps along with the deliverable that they need in sort of this outcome-based package, you're getting paid for that margin of value that is not that hard for you to do, but is a huge value for the customer. And I see sometimes where people try to separate the pieces. So like they try to separate the, I got one fee just for the writing, and I got one fee just, for the, go to market strategy or something like that with the book. Or in the spaces I've been, it's like, people sometimes try to pull out consulting from the deliverable and charge for them separately. And I've always found that you make more money when you combine the consulting and deliverable all in sort of one outcome focused package, because it's just, you don't have to sell each thing individually. You don't have to sell your advice and sell the deliverable. You just sell the outcome. And so I love that. That's awesome. And as we go through, if you guys have any follow-up questions on any of this stuff, we'll try to take some time to throw them in there as well. So feel free to ask. Michal, how about yourself?
Yeah, so I really related to what you just said about combining the strategy and the execution. I think that people who overly focus on the strategy don't realize that very often I know clients who come to me, they've already been to a consultant here and a consultant there, and they have like a beautiful fancy slide deck, or they have a positioning doc, and it was sitting there for 6 months or 12 months and they did nothing with it. So being able to say, not only am I going to help you nail this strategy, but by the end of 3 months, you will have 10 pages of trust inspiring, compelling, social proof rich website copy that is going to help you win more business. So that execution is not to be underrated. And by then they've often realized that strategy is only as good as what happens afterwards. So really emphasizing both pieces there. Love that.
And when it comes to selling those website packages in particular, where are the places where you feel like the strategy that you deliver to the client is like kind of that big perceived value, or that big, like it's something that maybe isn't really much effort for you because you're so deep in that space, but for the client, it really impacts their ability to benefit from the deliverables you're giving them?
So it depends on the client. There are clients who come with an understanding that their positioning needs work. They're like all over the place. They're not sure where they want to go. They need clarity. So if you can really go hard on that and talk about how you're going to have the meetings and you're going to have the discussions and the questionnaires to pull out those answers and help them chart a very clear path forward regarding their positioning, that's huge value for them. Okay. And they're just too inside their business to be able to see things objectively. So that's huge. And that often I'm not even doing much. I'm just asking questions. And it all comes out, and there's these big aha moments during those meetings. I've also found that site structure, which we don't focus on enough, like what pages do I need? What kind of layout? What's the architecture of the site? They're completely lost. They don't know where to start with that. So I started positioning that as a separate stage and deliverable, where I will help you figure out exactly what pages you need for your audience, for your services. We'll structure the site, and then we'll go ahead and write the copy. So that makes them feel like super reassured that they're going to be in good hands.
Love that. For a large portion of the first half of my career, I was doing a lot of website copy. And I noticed that as I started to get a better feel for websites, that when I would kind of proactively advise people reaching out to me for website copy with asking them the right questions, like you said, like just getting them to think about the right questions. And then some of the things when they would tell me, give me some answers, and I would then say, here's what I would suggest for your site structure. Like that was such a key selling point for them. Like when I would do that with people, like my close rate on selling the website copy just shot through the roof, because they didn't know what pages they needed. And once I told them what pages they should have, now I would imagine some of those first few, I probably advised them poorly because I was still learning, but just having a fixed target like was a huge selling point, and it built trust. So for anyone here, who is offering website copy, that's 2 for 2 on the website copy of if you can get in and advise on site structure, it can really help you sell. And Sarah, how about you?
Well, 2 like themes are popping up that I will definitely echo because I think it's definitely the same for me. So one is implementation. People don't know what to do with your copy, and unless they have a really dialed in system, it can often just go like sit on a shelf. And so if you can help your people, and even when they do have people helping them with implementation, sometimes they're doing a really poor job. So if you can just help them with actually implementing what you create, that goes so far. And then I think just something that you guys have all touched on, but I'll just add is everybody, especially in my industry, doctors, the feeling of like, I don't know what I don't know is really uncomfortable. And nobody wants to look like a fool or be embarrassed about their online presence. Again, especially my clients, but really, truly everyone, right? And so when you can kind of shine a light on how you know things, what they don't know, and you can present that in a few different ways, right? But if you can like bake that into everything, I mean, that really also makes it a no-brainer because they just want to feel reassured, at the end of the day that they're not going to fuck it up. They're not going to, are you allowed to curse on YouTube Live? Sorry. And
I'm surprised I didn't beat you to it.
What?
I'm surprised I didn't beat you to it.
I know. I'm like, was that really the first F-bomb with me and Jacob on the line? Anyway, so yeah, so those are like two big like themes that I think we've seen across everyone, and I'll definitely echo. And then the other thing I feel like I have to touch on is at the end of the day, your reputation. And that actually you build a name for yourself especially that's why I'm a big believer in like having a niche. Just because it it just makes things happen faster for most people. I know that there are the anti-niche folks like Ryan, which I love because we always need the example of how literally everything works and you can do whatever is best for you. However, the reputation, it doesn't take that long to build a name for yourself is really what I'm trying to say here. And I remember when I kind of hit a tipping point where I knew, because I was thinking about how you framed the question of like when I got to the place where when I would hop on a call and I kind of was more expecting a yes than a no, a lot of that kind of came from just who I was in the industry at that point in time. And, I'm not like famous, but within like the small functional medicine doctor world, I kind of became like the copywriter, especially on certain topics. So much so that people were asking me to like write chapters in their book, write chapters in textbooks. And I was like, this is not what I do, but I'm a nerd. So like, let's go. And so when you get that, like you build a little bit of a name for yourself, I mean, that really does the heavy lifting for you. I feel like I didn't really have to pitch very hard at all at that point. And I just want to like really emphasize that didn't take that long. That probably took me 2 years of just like showing up consistently and providing high quality work for people in a pretty small network. I mean, and so I think that's something for people to know, because obviously at the beginning, it's always so rough getting those first few clients and stuff. But once people are referring you, I mean, a referral is gold. Like that's when I think Ryan does that so well. Like he knows to invest in referrals and cultivating those relationships because it does the heavy lifting for him. I mean, not that you don't do heavy lifting, but you know what I mean? Anyway, so I think that's the one thing that I wanted to touch on that I hadn't heard you guys talk about yet, but like you've all built names for yourselves, and that helps a lot. So
Absolutely. And for people who are kind of like, okay, how do I get to that point? One of the things I want to point out is whether you try out 8 niches before finding the one that you double down on, like Ryan, or whether you start, pitching doctors and healthcare and immediately like start to see traction in that space. Once you find the thing you like, the moment you start doubling down on lookalike clients, that's where you can hit that point in 1 to 2 years. For Sarah, like once you have that first client who's a doctor, you do good work for them. I would imagine literally the next doctor you pitched, it was that much easier to close because you could then say, hey, I just worked with so-and-so.
Yep. It's exponential, like the impact that has. So
people often think like, okay, like I gotta go build 10 years of credibility in the space, like these people on the screen that I'm watching. And the reality is, if I've never worked with a doctor. So if anyone here watching this, if you go work with one doctor, you will have an easier time closing the next doctor than I would trying to go close my first doctor right now, despite all the other experience I have, because it's not relevant. When you're talking to a client, they don't care about the random stuff that you've done for completely different industries, at least not to the extent that they care about what you've done with another business that looks very similar to theirs. So if you have, like, even right now, the best people to upsell and sell to are people who have already paid you. If you're looking now at like past clients that you've worked with, as you're looking at growing in 2024, the first place is go pitch past clients. And then the second thing is think about what clients have I worked with? What clients do I have now that I would like to have more clients like that? Use those clients as the perfect like example to pitch new clients. And it doesn't matter if you don't have all this data to show. Like, I think a lot of people think you need like all this proof that your work made them $1 million. Like, some of the offers we've discussed here have no like when Ryan's pitching a book deal, he's not pitching ROI. He's pitching time savings. He's pitching a desired qualitative outcome of having a book. Whether that book makes money or not, that's not what he's selling. He's selling having a book, that did not previously exist. There's so many offers in copywriting that have nothing to do with immediate ROI. They're about all these other types of value. So we had a question here for you. We had a question. Let's see. I think this one was for Michal. When it comes to, I think the intent here is, do you have like, do you have a team or partners who, I'm thinking the thought process here is technical with structure and implementation. I know for us, we were talking about more like pages that are needed that you write, not necessarily that we're building the website. But you may do that on your team.
So I definitely have referral partners who I regularly refer to, mostly because they're just amazing, pleasure to work with, and I know that the website's going to come out fantastic. But I emphasize to clients that I'm also happy to work with their designers. It's actually one of the questions I include in our discovery questionnaire at the very beginning of the process. One of the questions is, do you have a designer lined up for the project? Because this way, from the get-go, we could start a conversation and make sure that they have someone really good lined up. And if they start looking into someone who I think is going to be a disaster, I will very gently tell them so.
Love that. And when we talk about too, like advising on website structure and implementation, like part of it is it's as simple as like, what pages should we write? Like, what pages should you have on the site? Even if we're not actually building those pages out, just letting people know what pages they need. Now, if you ever do go through the process of building a site, like on WordPress or something, putting up pages is not actually that hard. Anyone here could learn how to build a basic site in a week. But you don't necessarily have to be delivering the actual building of the site yourself to be advising on structure and implementation.
Yeah, and I'll add to that I've had clients where the sitemap was very extensive. So we're talking about like 15, 18 pages. And my team only wrote 5 or 7 of the core pages, and they in-house handled the rest. But there was still tremendous value to having that structure finalized.
Absolutely. We had another one for you, Ryan. Let's see. Have you ever personally written a book and gone through the publisher agent route? asking because it's tough to snag one. I'm guessing they're snagging an agent, or
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. I'm currently writing a memo right now, going slowly because writing your own stuff is much harder than writing stuff for other people because you second guess everything you say about yourself. But with the clients, like, oh, this is the best. Yeah, this is what you should say. Totally. But when it's you, you're like, no, that's dumb. Don't put that in there. No one cares about that.
So true.
You could also probably get some more insight from Sarah too. I know you've been in the book writing and launching process. You might have a little more insight than I do on your own book.
Oh, but I just have written my own book, so I feel like I still know nothing. I feel like I came out of it like a little beat up and like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Did you write?
I have like good insights for that one, honestly.
Did you write yours to self-publish, Sarah, or did you pre-set up some sort of a deal?
So I actually was going through a publisher and then decided to self-publish just because it's a disaster and I just like don't have the patience for that stuff. And I don't know. It was so much red tape and like I kind of feel like it's I don't know, what is the word here? All the words I'm thinking of I shouldn't use.
Outdated.
Yeah, to me I was just like, this is so outdated, and it's kind of like highbrow, and a lot of people, it's like a lot of self-importance in it.
Yeah.
And I was like,
and it takes forever too.
It takes forever, and it's like it's just like lacks a lot of logic. It's like real archaic, but it's the thing that people feel is really prestigious. And as you guys know, like that, I don't need the prestige of saying I was like fully published. So I was like, I'm going the self-published route.
Yeah, that's like the one thing that traditional publishing still has, is it has the street cred of like, I'm a traditional author, but it's like
you're
for hybrid, if you do it well, is so much better.
I really think it's going to be like going to like university for most people at some point, where people are just going to realize that they just are holding on to this like prestige that's like what an idea
doesn't have much real value. It's more of the perceived value, and that kind of drops with each year as we all
quickly fading. Yeah,
we all kind of know that you pay to be a bestseller at this point. You know, like
right? So, you pay to be in the airport, like you pay to be on the bookshelves, and it's just like I don't know. So I left, and it's in formatting. It's done. It's literally done. Yeah.
So real quick here, I'd love to go through and get one more round from our panelists here on, in light of everything we've talked about, thinking about like crafting and selling a 10K offer. Is there anything that you feel is like the biggest thing to think about? Maybe something we haven't touched on, or something that you feel could use a little bit more elaboration? I'll give you guys a sec to think about that while I throw up one last question here for Ryan, and then we'll do a little more questions after. But how do you find the people? How do you find the people to pitch?
Oh goodness, there's so many answers to that question.
How don't you?
Yeah, for real. It like everywhere you look, it's like, oh, that would be a great book. Oh, you have so much subject matter expertise. That would make for a great book. Or just people that have crazy cool stories. That would make for an amazing memoir. I know something that I did for a while is I would watch a lot of like documentaries on Netflix and everywhere like that. And I would think, wow, that's a really cool story. And I'd be like, does that person have a book about that experience? And if they didn't, I'd be like, well, maybe you should write a book. Things like that. So clients are everywhere, really. And once you kind of see that, then you're like, oh yeah, they're everywhere. There are clients everywhere. So yeah.
Totally. Cool. So with that said, let's start with you, Sarah. Is there anything in that question of when people are thinking about crafting and selling a 10K offer, any final things you want to leave people with?
I feel like it's actually a balance between two things. I see two things happen with newbie copywriters, and it's about finding the middle ground. Either one, they are just right out the gate trying to pitch a 10K and they just honestly don't have the expertise and like experience to do it yet. So just like keep putting the work in and getting better at your craft. Like the two things you should be focusing
Still love
on.
the audacity though. I'd rather
Yeah.
see that
Oh,
than like
appreciate it. Wish I fell into that camp early on. I feel like it's like men fall into that camp, and then we've got the women, and the women on the other end. No, I'm just kidding.
No, seriously.
I like barreled forward. I was like, I don't know anything, but I'm pitching everybody. I'm gonna get some work.
And then we have the women who have been selling themselves short for generations. So I'm just kidding. The other camp is the people who struggle to charge like what their work is worth. And that one is almost like more painful and hard to like pinpoint, just because if you're pitching things that you're like unqualified for, you're going to get the feedback usually, or you're going to piss someone off. You know, you'll recover. You'll be okay. You were out over pitching anyway. You're fine. But the people who are just struggle to raise their rates. I mean, I just really think like working with a mentor is the best, like getting feedback, because those people need to hear from someone like you should be charging more. And if you go work with like a mentor, or even as like a junior copywriter with another copywriter, just to hear that, or whatever it is that you need, money mindset work, like there's so many different things. It's just unique to each person. Those are the most common ones. Untying your self-worth from like your career and remembering that like you're not charging what you're worth. You are charging what your work is worth. Trying not to take things personally, like all that stuff, all that like emotional stuff that gets in the way of charging appropriately. I don't know. I think that's always going to be the place I think most people actually like need to focus. And then obviously, but getting better at your craft, which is, I think, the obvious one. And I'm trying to think, what was the question? Am I answering it? Do I need to add?
No, you answered it perfectly. And we're gonna go ahead and do a slight pivot to address this question, because like when I saw this, I realized for all of us, when we hear like, we've kind of already covered this, but to us at our stage in the business, we hear the value drivers and we know the details don't matter. But for a lot of people who have never offered a 10K package, it feels like the details are important. So I think if we can each very quickly just outline the details of a 10K contract we've signed, I think it'll help ground this discussion a bit more. So I can start real quick. So like for me, the most common thing that I've made 10K for is like a content marketing package. And this is usually like 10K per month or a 10K one-time content strategy. So for the content strategy side, it's literally a 12-month plan for what content to create. So this is keyword research, which keyword research is the hardest single skill I've ever learned in my career. I don't necessarily recommend trying to learn it like willy-nilly. It took like a solid year of using keyword research for it to start to make sense to me. Because otherwise, someone can explain to you what all the numbers in the dashboard look like, but like there's no real takeaway from that until you've been using it and seeing how the numbers translate to real ranking activity. But keyword research, competitor research, looking at what other, what similar brands are ranking for, both in terms of organic keywords as well as PPC. That's just tools. That's Ahrefs, and I think I use something called iSpionage. It's weird. I'll try to find a link to it, but basically, just it kind of tracks what people are spending what keywords people are paying for. So just looking at their top competitors, that they tell me what those competitors are, throwing them into those tools, looking at what comes up, and saying, here's what that tells us about the content potential. This company's making money from organic traffic. We can go in, do the same. And then mapping out the actual blog posts they're going to write over that year with headlines for the articles, brief little description for each, so they're basically getting like most of the time we're talking like 2 to 4 articles a month for 12 months. So I'm just mapping out what those articles are going to be. That's it. And giving them reasons why, giving them some critique, giving them some, like summary of what their traffic potential is, stuff like that. in all of these situations, they're looking at paying $120K minimum over the next year on content. So it's very easily worth $10K to make sure they don't waste $120K on worthless, shit, which I've done in my career for my own businesses, waste a ton of time and money ranking for stuff that did nothing. And then the content package itself each month would usually, like, it's literally as simple, because I would use the content strategy to upsell a 10K per month content marketing retainer. And that's going to include, some number of blog posts. So for a 10K package, we're probably looking at 4 blog posts, 1 per week. This is long form content, and then some link building, some budget to go into manual promotion. This is a service that was kind of built 5-6 years ago. Nowadays, coming in, I would need to adjust it to continue selling it, because link building is less effective. SEO really needs a PR component now, so I would have to readapt it. But that's what it was for many years. And then the reporting and adjustments. So basically giving them a report on how the rankings are looking. And then sometimes too, depending on the client, there might be a component of creating a lead magnet for their email list, something that we could try to funnel, blog content, traffic from the blogs into email signups so that they could then sell to them. Occasionally I would include that in it. Sometimes that was its own separate thing. So those are the details for mine. Ryan, was there anything more you wanted to add? You kind of probably gave the most like granular description of
I mean, like, I can just run through the deliverables of what my actual service is. If it's like the $50,000 service, which is like the basic how-to book, business building book, you get the full manuscript that's written in, first draft, second draft, final draft, all that kind of stuff. You get access to my entire network, which is a very high quality list of contractors that do really good work. I will connect them to you no matter, depending on what you need, what publishing route you go through. I do something called collaborative networking with my clients. So while we're writing the book, we use the book writing process to network them with big players in their industries. And that's a very high ROI activity. And then the fourth thing is that while we're writing this book and talking about them, I will consult them on how to use that book and kind of do a little bit of like thought leadership consulting while we're writing the book. So those are like the actual deliverables that they'll get.
Love it. How about you, Mikal?
Yeah, so typically a 10K package will include the strategy piece, which is either some kind of positioning guide or a more extensive brand messaging guide, depending on the brand's needs, a site map with the recommended structure for the site, and website copy for 5 to 7 pages. I mean, as we go past 10K, so you would add pages. So if you need a 10-page website, that's more like 15K. And I've also included in these packages LinkedIn profiles for key people in the C-suite, and an email sequence or 2, depending on what they needed. Those are common deliverables.
Love that. How about you, Sarah?
So I feel like one of my early 10K like packages. So I would always, for me, packages were usually like a monthly retainer. So it would often be what they needed in a month. So anything like a website or a landing page, a sales page, anything that was more like a one-off, a sales sequence, a nurture sequence, those were usually like separate. So, and their own price point over. So just an ongoing 10K retainer would be oftentimes, between 5 to 8 emails and 4 blogs. Just like that, just as simple as that.
And keep in mind, guys, when we talk about selling a 10K package, it is equal parts what you're selling and who you're selling it to. Pepsi spent $1 million on a new logo that could have been designed on Fiverr. But Pepsi's not going to pay $20, $50, $100 for a logo. They're Pepsi. They're a $1 billion, multi-billion-dollar brand. They have to pay $1 million for a logo, whether it comes out looking super advanced or like something someone could have designed in paint. At the end of the day, because of who they are, dictates how much they spend on the project. And we've all come across this in our own businesses where we pitch the same service to 2 different types of businesses. One of them, it's like there's like there's no way this is ever going to be a sell. They don't have the budget. And another one where like they're throwing money away. Like when we talk about like pitching startups or people that have just raised a VC round, like they literally have to spend that money. Like they have these aggressive growth targets. They have to spend the money, like just who you're pitching to really dictates how easily that money is going to be delivered. It also, like the value of ROI, the higher up you go in company value net worth, the less the ROI matters, the more time savings, convenience, doing things a specific way, white glove service becomes more important. So like if you're in a situation where everyone you pitch is constantly budget constrained and constantly trying to get you to give them like a 10-page dissertation on how you're going to drive granular profit, you're probably pitching companies that are too small. You're pitching, businesses that are not making enough money. So just something to think about there. Pitching people who can actually afford to pay for the bigger package is just as important as what that package is. And you're still going to play the volume game. We send pitches that fail all the time. At no point in my career have I closed a large percentage of my pitches. I think if I'm in a situation where I'm closing a high percentage, it's because I'm only pitching warm targets for that stretch of time. It's not because you get to this point where you have a perfect close rate. I want to hit if we have a few minutes to hit one last question. First of all, I just want to say huge thanks to Michal for showing up. It is past midnight where you are, and she is joining us on this call. Super appreciate you being here and hanging out with us at this late hour for you. Really appreciate it.
I had my coffee, I had my popcorn. It's all good.
I love it. And so this last question I wanted us to hit on, if anyone has any thoughts on this, I think it's a great question. Does anyone offer performance-based deals on anything that you do? Yeah. I'll kind of open it up for that if anyone wants to hop in.
I'll start because mine's easy. The answer is no. I've never done it. I don't want to be on their back end. I don't want to be in their numbers. I don't want to argue with them about numbers. I mean, maybe I've created a situation that like wouldn't have played out, but I like things cut and dry. I charge what I charge, and I don't know. That structure does not appeal to me at all.
Yeah, I don't.
On probably lots of money, so it's a.
Yeah, I don't do any like royalty or commission based stuff on what I do, or when I just did like the marketing stuff. I did when I did like email copy and stuff. Because I heard like, oh, this is the way you do money, and I'm like, okay, well, I did this business to make money, so I'm going to try this thing out. And I got a lower upfront fee, and then I had to be in their back end, which I hate because I'm not a tech person. I had to be in their back end. I'd make sure that they were being honest with, because like, oh, here's our Stripe account and this is how much we made. But they don't tell you they have 7 other Stripe accounts that are attached to the same business. And so it's like, if you're going to do something like that, I would wholeheartedly say work with the person first and really build a lot of trust with the person before diving into something like that. But even so, I probably would not go that route even now, just because like what Sarah said, I like cut and dry. This is my fee. This is how you're going to pay it. It's predictable, and I like that, even if I maybe am missing out on a little bit of money.
So I'm in the same camp. I've never done performance-based packages, but I think it's more because the projects I do, the sales cycle is longer. So you're not dealing with and the website is just one touch point in a very long and complicated sales process. So I cannot point to my website as the reason why he closed a 50K client that month. And therefore, the whole performance-based packages thing only works well with very specific kinds of assets. In my experience, the only copywriters who do it well and enjoy it and are happy with it are launch copywriters who are doing it for a specific course, a specific offer, and really are doing the full funnel. So all the assets for that launch, from the warm-up emails to the post-purchase and everything in between.
Speaking of, phenomenal large package offer to do a full funnel copy for any situation. Like, I mean, that's kind of a version of that you were doing, Sarah, for doctors, is like the the full package that gets them from no online presence to people having the ability to book like services through, or through the web. And yeah, same. Like if you can find people with big audiences who aren't leveraging, who are like solely making their money through like ad revenue, that is a gold mine of people who like you offer to come in and build out a full launch for a new product for them, and then take a cut of what the sales are. Sales are going to be super easy to track when the audience is already there, and you're doing a launch like that. And then you got that percentage, like it's going to be a big percentage just by virtue of their audience in most cases. But you do assume the risk. The reason all of us have kind of ended for the most part in the no category. Now, I've been experimenting with some other stuff this last year that I've told some of you guys about via email. But the reason we've been predominantly no through our careers is there's so many variables in marketing, and we have control over like one or two of them, And so like in terms of what we do as copywriters, like we're impacting one piece of the funnel. What they do from there is going to drive 75 to 95% of their revenue. It's not us. We're a small piece playing, and the bigger you go, the bigger the org, the bigger the package, often the less percentage you're doing of what they're, like you want to be operating in like the 0.01% of their marketing budget, like that's the sweet spot to be hanging out in. And so like as a general rule, you can use performance-based stuff sometimes to get your foot in the door, to try new things that you've been wanting to try, to make it kind of low risk for people to work with you when you're just starting out. But the moment you have some experience, the moment you have that one lookalike client to show, you really don't need to. Like, you don't really need to show any, like, you don't need to de-risk stuff for people to be willing to hire you. So, so it is, and I'll tell you guys right now, I work with some paid ads guys who are phenomenal, very, very good at what they do. Facebook ads, Google ads, they love percentage deals. And they have gotten shafted by clients so many times doing like full launch sellouts, building these like incredibly converting like 4 to 5, 500% ROI funnels. And then the moment it's there and making money, the client's like, I don't need you now. And, like tries to basically not pay them anything. Sometimes they're successful. Other times, like, it's the moment they take down the other person's copy, which they can, they'll just send them a cease and desist or something. And then now they can't sell anything. But like, this is where I talk about like the percentage of the crossover between entrepreneurs and narcissists. Like there's a lot of people out there who will be very happy to scam you, who will be very happy to take your work and run. So having a business where you are operating with a percentage cut, there's just so many ways you can not get paid the value of your work that way. Whereas if you just keep it in a flat fee that, is what you decide is the value of that you want to charge for your work, charge up front or half up front, half on delivery. I'll tell you now, in the 12 years now that I've been doing this, I've only had one client who paid the first half up front, then failed to deliver the second half payment. I've had several people who I've made exceptions for a variety of dumb reasons, not making them pay me half up front, who have then not paid me anything. It's happened much more frequently that way than when someone pays you half up front and then doesn't give you the second half. And then I know too, you can absolutely charge the full price up front too. That's a viable option as well.
I think awesome. The 50-50 is good for cold leads. And then once people know you just charge up front. That's my 2 cents on that. I also want to just add, because you said people with large audiences who run ads. I'd also just add people with large audiences. It is incredible to me the amount of people who build these massive audiences and do absolutely nothing with them. Nothing. It's like, I mean, I can't tell you the number of people I've sat in a room with and they have like 1 million subscribers and they're doing nothing with it.
And so, this is
your niche.
This is only going to get bigger because like we've crossed a tipping point where most of the up and coming generations, their main goal is to build an audience. Like they don't necessarily know what they want to be skilled at. They're not even looking to do anything particular. They just want clout. They want the audience. They want the platform. They know that once they have it, there's a lot of ways to monetize it. But then once they get there, which new people are getting there every single day, they don't know how to monetize it. And a lot of times the niche that they build the audience in doesn't really work like the ones they've been following or the ones they've been learning from. And so they find themselves with this huge audience, all this time spending, and they're still like, okay, I'm still not really making very good money. If you can come in and help them launch some sort of product that allows them to capitalize on that audience, that is a phenomenal offer that you can absolutely charge significant portions of money to do, whether you do a performance-based fee or not.
That would be fun, helping those people figure out an offer and then launching it.
Yeah, super fun service too.
That would be so fun.
Well, thanks everyone for joining. We'll go ahead and end this call now. I don't want to take up too much of our panelists' time. Thanks everyone for joining, and Ryan, Michal, and Sarah, thank you so much for hopping on and sharing your guys' insights with us. This was a blast. Hopefully this recording will successfully go through. And so, if not, nobody's going to be sitting here to listen to me say this. And for anyone who wants to join us for our 10K challenge in Right Minds, I'll put that link up here. Let's see if I can put that up there. There we go. Head over to there. We're going to be doing this. The whole month of February is devoted to attempting to sell one 10K offer. So whether you want the 10K or you want to just figure out how you can offer a package at that level with your existing skills and experiences, if you join the community, every week we do a group call and we dig into personalized coaching on how to craft that offer. We would love to have you join us for that challenge. I'm excited to share some of the case studies from that over this, the following months. And then for anyone who wants to learn more from our panelists, I have the links to their websites and or LinkedIn pages in the description below. Please check them out. You can learn a ton from them. I think as you've seen on this call, not only have each of them been extremely successful with their actual service work, which cannot be said for all the coaches and trainers out there today, by the way, but they're also incredibly effective communicators and very good coaches. Each of them have coached students to very successful freelance businesses in their own right, and you can learn a lot from them. So thanks for joining us, guys. Thanks everyone for hopping on, and I will see you the next time.
Bye.
Later.